And welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. Got a great show for you. Welcoming back Bonny Finberg here on my right, author of Kali's Day, and James Feast, editor and
publisher of it.
And this is a great book. We talked about it before, but some new developments. What's the latest in this great book, which you're going to read some more of and have read before, but we're gonna really dig deep into it this time and understand what your journey to Nepal was like. And
I was going to read a section from New York.
Oh, that's fine too. New York is like Nepal in some ways as well. And how would you? I mean, this is beautiful. So here you do have the symbolism, right? Mm-hmm. And then the streets of New York.
That wonderful color by James Romberger, the cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? He did it. So tell us a little bit about your book, Kali's Day. How did you? What brought you to write this book? What's the subject of the book, and where can we get it? Where can we find it?
Oh, well, I would encourage you to get it through your local bookstore. You can order it through your local bookstore, but it is available. There are copies at St. Mark's Books on their new location on 3rd Street. It's on Unnameable Books, Book Culture Uptown, Upper West Side.
All the cool bookstores.
All the cool bookstores have it. Even the Center for Fiction has a copy on 47th Street. What is it about? Well, I guess it's kind of about the human condition and sort of disintegration and rejuvenation of the spirit, things like that.
Well, where does it take place?
It starts out in New York, downtown New York, and it shifts to Nepal, and then there's some parts of it that are in India, that take place in India.
Is it based on true facts that happened, or is it?
It's fiction.
It's entirely fiction. What led you to?
I mean, a writer's life is always informs what she writes, but you know, it's basically fiction.
Okay, so but what led you to write it? How did your life inform this book, Kali's Day?
I was traveling. I wanted to write about Kali because she seemed to me to be a figure, a symbol of of both love and destruction, both creation and destruction. Just my observations of life around me.
Who is Kali?
She's a goddess. She's one of Shiva's cohorts, or whatever that word is. And she is basically, Shiva creates the universe. He's also the destroyer, but he creates the universe, but with Kali he recreates it. There's a wonderful, I think I've mentioned it before on here, there's a wonderful allegory about, which is my favorite one, about Kali and Shiva, about how Shiva falls asleep and Kali has, what she does is she destroys, but she destroys all the bad stuff so that the universe can be recreated in a good way. So Shiva falls asleep, so she straddles him and begins to have sex with him, and there's this white light of recreation that, as their orgasm recreates the world. And I just think that's such a great metaphor.
Right. Why is it Kali's Day?
Well, Kali's Day in Nepal is the day when there's the animal sacrifices, and it's kind of gruesome, actually. There's a place you go called Dakshin Kali where they have the Kali temple, and people line up with mostly chickens because they're the least expensive, but some people actually bring goats, and occasionally you'll get somebody who brings a bull, which is really
big money.
And they slit the throat, and the guy slits the guy who does the job. It's his job, and the guy who was doing it the day I was there, who I think that's who was always there, is a very young man, somewhere between 17 and 22 probably, and he just repetitively takes the chicken, slits its throat, and then goes like that and squirts it onto the statue, and it's quite gruesome.
Why is that done? What does that represent?
Well, the interesting thing is that I always thought you give homage to the god or the goddess when you're asking for something, but in fact, no, that's not true. You go and you give thanks after you've gotten what you've prayed for. So it's basically, it's kind of
giving thanks.
Right, after the fact.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, kind of. And then actually afterwards, all the women, it's all men online with the animals, and then the women afterwards, they're basically putting flowers and rice and things like that on the statues. But what happens afterwards is they all cook up a picnic with what's left, and they eat the animal, so it doesn't go to waste.
I thought people in India were vegetarian, mostly.
In Nepal, they eat meat. They do. There's some people are vegetarians. There's Newari culture, and there's also Hindu culture, which is Newari culture is kind of a mix of Buddhist and Hindi culture, but they do eat meat. They eat buffalo. They don't eat cows. They don't eat cows, but they do eat buffalo. Also, when you're living that high up in the mountains, there are vegetables that grow there, but I know, like, when you go further up into the Himalayas where very little grows, and I've been in parts of India where nothing, you can't even get, I mean, a cucumber is considered a delectable thing to eat.
It has to all be hiked up the mountain.
Well, you know, even in a restaurant, it's hard to get anything green or vegetable because things just don't grow that well up there. It's pretty rocky. So they do eat animals. So when I was up there, though, it took me a while to get myself to go. I knew what it was about, and I couldn't quite bring myself to do it, and I did.
To see the slaughter of all these animals.
Yeah. So Kali's Day, the reason I named it Kali's Day was because it's basically it takes place in more than one day, but in Kali's time sense of time, you know, a day is, you know,
could be anything.
A long time.
Sort of like biblical day, right?
Exactly.
The 7 days of creation.
Right.
Well, do you want to give us a reading from the book?
Okay, now that I've talked so much about Kali, I'm going to read something very much about New York, and this is...
where the book opens in New York. It opens up in New York?
Yeah, what's happened up to this point is there's been a terrible breakup, and this is, I'm actually reading through the voice of Henry. So I hope you can pretend that I'm a guy. I'll lower my voice. And he's broken up with Candace, who's a pot dealer, and he's kind of a spiritual type, but he's a lot younger than her, and he's very entranced with her, and she did something that he couldn't forgive, so he told her they had to leave. She had to leave, so she has since taken up with someone else, and he's quite distraught, and he's been drinking a lot and taking a lot of drugs. So he's now going over to his friend. His ex-wife is living with this guy, Theo, and his ex-wife is Michelle, who he's still friends with. So he goes over there. It's over in in the 40s on 9th Avenue, and so they're going to go and see the eclipse. They've decided they're going to go out and see the eclipse.
That's pretty close to where we are right now. We're in the 50s on that. Between
That's right. It's not far from here, and I love the fact that it's sort of called Hell's Kitchen. Okay, the name of the chapter is Lover of Animal Sacrifice. First he's talking about him and Candace, and then he moves on. We keep rubbing up against each other. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. No, okay. Now he's at their house, Michelle and Theo. About 6 of us meet at Michelle and Theo's to watch the eclipse. People say they're feeling off. Everyone is talking in some form or other about detachment, feeling marginal behind their own heartbeats. I don't notice any difference. Theo says cancers are supposed to be especially agitated wherever she is, whatever she's doing. After a couple of hours, we're just noticing that the windows face the wrong direction and we can't see the moon. It would be better at the end of the 44th Street Pier, so we walk the two long blocks to the river. We go all the way out to the end past the Intrepid. I turn to look at it. It's looming behind us, two-dimensional against the flat gray sky. We smoke another joint and pass the flask. A portable tape player sends an old salsa tune into the oily river air. A Puerto Rican couple makes out on a bench. Michelle and I dance around. Theo, who's writhing his stomach to the voice of Hector Lavoe, beseeching an impossible love. Floating 10 feet above the river, we bump hips and hook arms to stay warm and upright. I turn again toward the buildings. The sharply lit towers further east are dwarfed behind the massive ship. The eclipse is over. We didn't see it, and nobody cares. Soon, everyone drifts off. Then I go back to Michelle's.
All right, Bonny, thank you. Kali's Day. All right, we'll be hearing some more later on in the show. So let me slip over to our other guest, James Feast, who's one of the folks who published the book, and you, your publishing company is, I'm sorry to say, is Autonom Media, right?
Well, we're an imprint called Unbearable Books that Ron Coleman and I do, and Unbearables is a group of writers that has been together for 20 years.
Right, and we talked about this a little bit in the past, but let's revisit it. Tell us a little bit about these unbearable writers, right? What makes them so unbearable?
We believe in, we have a theory. There's been a lot of so-called avant-garde in the United States, but they seem to forget the things the French and the real avant-gardes do, which is like go out in the street and do actions and do events. So we tended to do events. We tried to do events like protesting at the New Yorker, getting thrown out of the New Yorker. Then we went to the Beat Conference.
What were you protesting at the New Yorker?
Well, Sparrow was leading us. You know, Sparrow, I don't know. He says, they don't have enough poems about earthworms, is one thing, you know. So we went to the office, and you know, we actually got to the office before they had, like, super security at Condé Nast, and we went to the office and, like, asked to see the poetry editor, got thrown out, and we just want to kind of deconstruct the notion of this is some kind of holier-than-thou, you know, edifice that everybody should desire to get into. But we tried, that's elite culture. We also made fun of beat culture. They had a big beat conference.
They don't even accept when you try to send something in. They say we do not accept anything.
Yes.
So how do they ever get anything if they don't accept it?
Well, it's a network, I think. A secret, you know, a club. Yes.
The key and everything.
Yes. We also protested the Beat. The Beats had a reading, and let me give you an answer. We protested outside because they were reading. So the real rebel poets. This is a town hall. Tickets $50 a pop. You know, is that what rebel poets? So we went outside protesting. Real poets don't use air conditioning. And the funniest thing was, Gregory Corso comes up to us and starts yelling at one of our members, going like, "You guys are just a bunch of wannabes that can't write poetry." So Sparrow, this guy Sparrow is a kind of a character in our group. He goes like, "I can write better poetry than you." And he started reciting a poem. Then Gregory Corso, who you know is kind of a character, started reciting his poem back, and people going with mink coats into the thing are like, looking at Corso, who looks like a downbeat drug addict, drug addict, were like shying away from him because they thought he was some kind of like street person. Then they're paying $50 to see him read later the same day. Right. They could have seen him on the street a little more authentically, I think, you know. Right.
Interesting. So, that makes why you're unbearable. Why the writer's unbearable. And so, what from the publisher's point of view, what was it that drew you to Kali's Day?
Well, we feel, and this is what we found from studying New Yorker, that there's a rebel fiction that Bonny belongs to, and a lot of writers like Kerouac and Theodore Dreiser, etc., belong to, and they're the ones carrying the weight today. They have the power that the serious so-called New Yorker style writers don't have. Number one, they have a lot of heart. You're not going to see the heart. I've read so many novels recently by Richard Ford, Jonathan Franzen, and on. They're like plastic. You know, this book is so full with heart, so full of emotion that you read it, you feel. There's a bunch of writers in our group, and another good example is Alan Kaufman, Drunken Angel. You may say it's a little chaotic in some parts, but there's heart. You see what I'm saying? Heart, the feeling is so powerful here, yet with no sentimentality whatsoever, no BS, you know. Secondly, it's a family relationship. This unimaginably dysfunctional family of a mother and then the stepfather and the daughter, but it's so real. There's so much. Okay, stepmother. Whatever. It's so torn and sad, but with so much depth to it. You know, you're never going to see the writing of this level anymore, except in the rebel writers like that she's leading.
What are they? What happens in the? Is it you know? The way traditionally, and I know this because I help students take the SAT, and one of the questions we were looking at were 2 reading pieces, and one presented the idea of the sort of the writer who writes for the critic, who writes in an affected style, and then those writers who write in order to make money for a genre, like science fiction or mystery writing and things like that, and that these are opposed to each other, and these are the 2 poles of writing. So is that accurate?
Well, no, I feel that there's writers in each of those genres that have different positions. And if you take a writer like Chandler, there's a book called Farewell, My Lovely. What is that book about? If you really read it, first he meets one police officer who's good, then he meets a bad police officer, then he meets 2 suburban officers. Most of the book is about dealing with how do police departments relate to each other to solve a crime. What is a crime? A woman who was a dance hall hostess, disguised herself, hid her identity, got married to somebody rich. So we have to police the bounds between cultures, between the levels of the class. That's an elite view. If you read, for example, Himes, Chester Himes, what is the story? The two cops in his cop books, like Gravedigger Jones and or Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones, they're saying like they go like we don't follow the police department. So they in one scene they like giving a critique of the system. One they go like, well, in one instance the white police just yelling at them. They go, listen, you can either catch the real criminals, which you don't want to do because they're connected to the higher ups, or you could pay the people in Harlem money, which you don't want to do because it's a racist system. So then you're going to have chaos. That's how it is. And we're just trying to control that chaos in a limited way. There's like a very social critique in this author. Right. Chandler doesn't have a social critique. He's a good writer. I'm not saying they're a bad writer. But they're different points of view, but it's the rebel writers that have the heart. It's Himes, it's the Finbergs that have the heart.
Right. They tell you what it is about.
Because they're telling you what it is. That's where heart comes from, looking at society as it is, not what's the problems with the different police departments. I mean, Chandler's book is fantastic. The guy beats him up. The hero, Marlowe, gets beat up. But later at the end, he gets the guy who beats him up. He's, I'm just a cop. I'm trying to do my job. I understand you. That's in the book. Right. I understand you. Let's be friends. Okay. What? So how does the police departments work together? What kind of plot is that? I mean, that's the plot of the there's no heart in a plot like that.
Right, right. That's what people want you to believe.
Yeah, that's what they want you to think about. Like
the cop is only, I'm just doing my job, man.
Yeah. But Chandler endorses that. I'm saying that's the problem.
But the other person is saying, and the other, it's like the world is really screwed up.
Yes,
it really is screwed up. I mean, like the rich people will never go to jail for crimes, and the cops just keep the system going.
Yeah, that's his point of view. A very strong point of view.
Interesting, very interesting. So, what do you think for the readers out there? What will they learn from reading Kali's Day? What do you think?
You'll get the heart. You'll get the family, and plus you get another thing that used to be done by the elite writers like Henry James. Henry James, to me, the theme was in Ambassadors and other books, how can the two cultures of Europe and America, can they ever be connected? They usually can't be, but how do you do that? Hers is but that's an elite level discussion. Sure. There's, read Henry James, a million discussions. But her, it's like down and dirty. They have these pot dealers flee. The heroes flee to Nepal, but then they have no money. Yeah. The people there have even less money than is imaginable. So they're trying to relate to them on a basic, what we're going to have for dinner, basic level. The two cultures becoming the different philosophies. There's kind of this new agey, intelligent new agey version of the New Yorkers, and then how does that meet a real ancient Indian philosophy?
New York East villagers meeting.
Yes, but it's
Lower East Siders.
But it's done with a profound depth, a profound clarity. If I'm not wrong.
All right, and here's the person who gave us all this profound depth, Bonny Finberg, who wrote the book, Kali's Day, we have before us. And why don't you, we're just in time, right at this moment, it'd be perfect to read another clip. And here's one, and then we'll talk some more with you about the book and why you wrote it.
I should have come prepared to read about Nepal after you just said all those wonderful things.
All true.
It makes you want to visit Nepal.
Yeah. Well, let me just say something. I can't start doing that. I'm going to waste time. All right, I'm going to read the second part of what I started earlier. We were talking about something, but I don't remember what. Theo's flaked out on the couch, and Michelle and I are in the kitchen. I'm on a stool, and she's putting together some hot dogs and handmade garlic mayonnaise. She's almost nodding out, and the oil isn't quite bonding with the eggs. I feel a little nauseous, and maybe should lie down. I can't tolerate myself, so I took a Nembutal and freely consumed whatever else was around to give it a boost, a little more brandy and a pipe. I went into Michelle's bedroom and disappeared into the mattress. I can hear her in the kitchen, whisk beating erratically against the bowl, making her sometimes excellent hand-whipped garlic mayonnaise. The coffee smells good. I wonder if I'm dying. Mind unfurling beyond the body, and everything parading under eyelids. There's the drama of the moment. I can't move, but I'm heading for parts unknown, or parts unknown headed for me. Black people, not African people, but people who are black like obsidian, are drinking blood from a skull. They're naked and covered with ash. Hard to tell whose limbs are whose. Men are loving cows and horses. 3 women are doing nasty things with a monkey, a dog, and a deer. 2-dimensional line people walk across a white screen. They're round and comical like Oliver Hardy, and they've come to kill me. Maybe the smell of coffee got me up. I have a couple of hot dogs on French bread with mayo, 2 cups of coffee, another couple lines, a brandy, and I feel better. Michelle wants me to stay over. I consider, but I need to go home.
All right. So tell us a little bit about where Kali's Day can be obtained.
Okay, well, it can
Show us the cover so we
Oh
can see
yes,
it.
this wonderful cover by James Romberger. I feel so happy about this. It can be obtained, well, if you must go onto Amazon, you can get it there, but I encourage you to get it. You can order any book through your local bookstore, so I encourage you to support your local bookstore, and I will mention my favorites in my community, which is St. Mark's Books on East 3rd Street, and Unnameable Books on Vanderbilt Avenue in Brooklyn, and Book Culture up on 112th Street on the Upper West Side.
Okay, so within all the people within earshot of this show, there's a place they can
Absolutely.
go and pick
This
up
is
a copy of
Manhattan
this book.
Neighborhood Network.
Right, right.
Yay.
Are you going to be doing any more readings? I know you did a reading at St. Mark's Books a while back. Was it?
Oh,
St. Mark's?
yeah,
That
yeah.
was interesting.
Am I going to be doing any readings coming up? I'm not sure. Nothing planned definitely yet.
Do you have a website or page or where people
I
can
have a
go?
Facebook page. I have a fan page under Bonny Finberg. There's also a page for Kali's Day, and I have a website called A Traveler's Journey in Babel.
Mm-hmm. Why did you choose Nepal and why the connection between Nepal and New York?
Let's see, in 1991 was the first time I went to Nepal. I did a trip to Nepal and India. I'd always wanted to go there. I went there, and I went to this little, it's called a city, but it's more like a town. It's hard to explain what a city means in Nepal. Mm-hmm. It's very ancient. It's a medieval city. It's called Bhaktapur, and I spent a couple of days there just sort of looking around, and I thought, I want to come back here, and I want to stay, and I want to live here for...
What is it about Nepal that you found attractive?
The people, first of all, are just the most... I can't explain it, but they have a lot of heart. They really do, and I've made very, very dear friends. They're like my family there, some of the people. And they're very welcoming. I was able to go, to the temples, and I was welcomed in and sit with, the priests and whatever. And it's beautiful landscape. The music is wonderful, and I liked being in Bhaktapur because it was like at night it would come alive, especially after all the tourists left, and all the lamps would be, the ghee lamps would be lit, and people would start chanting and playing hand cymbals and marches in the street for all sorts of ritual, celebrations and stuff. So I've always been a spiritual person, so it just seemed to be a place where I really felt like I belonged in some way.
Right. Do they smoke a lot of marijuana there?
They smoke ganja, which is like hashish. It's more like hashish. They don't really smoke grass. They smoke,
It's a spiritual thing. The reason they don't do it just to get high, but
well, there are, especially like the ones in India. There are sadhus like Shiva sadhus.
What's a sadhu? Explain that.
Sadhu is a ascetic, who lives very poorly. They usually have a begging bowl, and people give them money and food. And the Shiva, they're called Naga. They're called Nagas, and they are they smoke bongs a lot. That's part of their thing. But so do
those pipes that they use in India, like this, the
bongs.
ones that go bongs.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, like that.
You put it here, like it sticks up. Like
right. You look like a real expert at that.
I'm actually pretty bad at it. I prefer a joint when I smoke, or a pipe.
Right. Is it legal there? Is it like marijuana?
Is it legal?
Yeah. How do they handle the legal?
I don't really, it never really occurred to me. I mean, people smoke it. People offer to you. It's probably illegal, but it doesn't
technically,
seem.
But
yeah, but I don't know. It never seemed to be a problem for anyone.
Right.
I mean, I know a lot of expats who live there.
A lot of it is you have to the United Nations has certain requirements in member states, but they don't necessarily enforce those.
Yeah, I mean, the only the one expat I know who got arrested in Nepal wasn't for smoking. It was for killing a cow with his car by accident.
And they love their cows.
And that's worse than smoking ganja.
I bet.
Yeah.
Right. What's the role? Why are cows considered so sacred?
Well, they're considered the mother. It's a symbol of the mother.
I see. Interesting. And do they really walk through the towns? I mean,
yes.
Right.
And when they come and they start like nibbling at people, when the people go in the market and they put all their stuff out on blankets, the vegetables, and the cows come and they start going toward it, and you can't like hit a cow or push a cow or even yell at a cow. So they just kind of go like this,
It's like an elementary
gently.
school kid.
Yeah. Use your words.
Right.
Yeah, like that. So, but at the same time, you'll see them on the road, and sometimes they have sores and they're not healthy looking and they're rooting through the garbage. So it's not a happy existence for a lot of the cows.
Right. In other words, they can't put them out of their misery either.
No. No.
It's natural. Whatever happens has to happen.
Right.
Right. That's interesting. Okay, great. So Bonny Finberg. Jim, what's the future? You guys working on anything else, or?
Well, can I just finish something
Yes.
she was saying? Because I think maybe you're not grasping this, because she's giving you pictures of New York, which you read, but there's like this. It's a very powerful underlying theme, which is people in New York they're neurotic, crazy, and they're searching for some kind of transcendence, but they grab drugs, alcohol. One guy gets, like, there's all kinds of violent scenes where people get, like, too drunk and stabbed, this and that.
Right.
The violence and the desperate search, which they're not for spirituality, which they're getting in all the wrong ways. Then they go for almost like plummet into Nepal, and there you start seeing the whole lifestyle has got a spiritual dimension that you don't have here. So suddenly, even though they smoke ganja, it's not the same thing. It's like the actions, the activities, the constant music is bringing you into a spiritual state of mind. So you don't need all these artificial versions or desperate versions. You know, the it's almost like a great contrast. New York, of course, everybody's trying to get stoned because there's no spiritual vitality in their life anymore. The spirituality has been drained out by the corporations, etc. You know, the same ones that drained it out of elite culture, I believe. So her book is based on these deep underlying contrasts. It takes years to figure a thing out to write a book like this. You know, that's why you can't pound out. You know,
it took me about 13 years, maybe.
13 years to read. What was the hardest part of writing?
What was the hardest part of writing it? I don't know. I mean, throwing certain things away, like letting go of things that needed to be cut out of it, maybe.
Killing your babies,
killing my darlings, yeah.
My darlings, right? That's what it is. Darlings.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the hardest part, though. I mean, I think it was sort of interspersed hard moments with other moments where it just seemed to, like, you know, it's just like, you know, it just seemed to flow, and then, you know.
Well, you see how funny it is. Now the current, I'm talking about, serious writers, they go, listen, and look at all the books they got, 25 books. Hey, wait a minute, could they write a book like this? No, it takes 19 years to do a book of this quality. And not one book of their 25 books is on this quality.
Get started. Everybody out there, you better get started. You want to write
it's a distillation of your whole life. You think Tolstoy threw out the books one after another? No.
Kali's Day, by Bonny Finberg, and check it out. See you next week. That's it.